So a curse is basically a condemnation from God. That's what a curse is. When you think of a curse, what do you think of a curse as?
You see, the thing is, the whole concept which the ladies have given us, that you know what, because the world is so bad, things are happening around us, and because Adam and Eve, they were in the heaven and they came down, or whatever the understanding is, it's purely because that they were made in perfection, and then what they did was not according to the God's plan. Right?
Well, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so it makes sense to you, but I was questioning to her that, look, you know what? There are few places which they mention it wasn't the God's plan, and then I said, you know what? When you say it's not God's plan, it means like God is losing control, right? But then they said, no, it wasn't, because for example, the lady was mentioning that Abraham and Hagar, they had a son, but that was not God's plan. So I said, you know what? If you think about this, that it wasn't God's plan, then again, at the time of Adam, you're saying it wasn't God's plan. So there are few plans which are not God's plan.
So what we mean by God's plan is basically God, so using His divine providence, guides all things for His will. You still have free will, right? God has minimal knowledge of all events that will occur and shall occur. For example, every future event is guided under His providence, but you are still choosing to do what you want to do. God exists outside of time. He isn't in time just deciding, I'm going to put this little clip here. No, He's outside of time. He's already at the end, He's already at the beginning. Like, if you're a Muslim, you have to believe that as well. In fact, you have to believe worse. Because as a Muslim, you have to believe that God not only guides what you will do, but even if you sin, even if I sin, even if all mankind sins, we commit a murder, we commit a rape, it's due to God's hand alone doing those things, because He's written that in our futures. But we don't believe that. We believe that God has middle knowledge, or it's called modalism, basically. Not modalism, sorry, monoism, basically. It's the idea that God has middle knowledge of all things. Probably got that wrong. But anyway, He basically has middle knowledge of all things, and He decides out of a number of possible universes to choose this one, all right? But it's still, the events still run how they run. You still choose to do whichever you choose to do, all right? So understand, that's basically why Christianity has free will and Islam does not have free will. You understand what I'm saying?
No, so do we have free will?
In Islam, you don't have free will. In Christianity, you do.
Let's forget about Islam, Christianity. Do you believe that we have free will?
I believe in the Christian religion that you do have free will, yes.
Okay, so let's, again, as I said, Christianity or Islam or any other religion, we forget about that.
If I forget about religion, bro, then we don't have a concept of God. And if we don't have a concept of God, then I'm wasting my time talking to you, because I might as well be an atheist.
That is completely understandable. But what I was going to do is to then ask you this, that, okay, you say that we have a free will, right? Now put into context of your belief, that when Adam did what he did and Eve did what he did, was it meant to be like that or not?
Was it meant to be like that? So when you mean meant, what do you mean by meant to be?
What is the concept that what did Adam and Eve do for us to come down and to be born in sin?
So Adam and Eve transgressed God's law. They were told specifically not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now this is important. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is symbolic of knowing a world in which there's good or evil. There was another tree in the garden, if you read earlier on, it was called the tree of life. Now that tree would have granted Adam and Eve eternal life, but they chose not to eat from that. They chose specifically to eat from the tree of good and evil, because the serpent beguiled Eve and said to her, look, you'll eat from this, you won't die, nothing will happen. Then further from that, we inherit that sin because we are born of the flesh. Every human being was born of the flesh. That's a fact. So that's why we inherit the sin, because even you today, sir, sin. Even I sin. We all sin. That's the problem. We all transgress God's law daily, as they did. So every single day we replicate what happened in the Garden of Eden, even if we choose not to do so. So what the Old Testament is not saying is that you have been blamed because Adam and Eve did a sin. No, it's saying the reason why you sin is because Adam and Eve sin, and because you're born of them. So even if you decided today, I'm never going to lie, I'm never going to steal, you eventually have done it. For example, have you ever lied in your life?
Yes, we have, yes.
Yeah, I've lied. Have you ever stolen anything?
But my question to you is, let's say, if they did not eat from the tree, and they did not do Adam and Eve, what they did, right, and followed the serpent, right?
Right.
At that time, what would they be doing?
Well, they would be a priesthood.
In heaven.
Yeah, 1 minute. So they would be a priesthood over mankind. They would be a priesthood over mankind. That's what the Bible says. They were made a priesthood over mankind. That was the point. They were supposed to be God's informant on earth. So what God was doing, he was creating a world for all human beings to live in, and if they followed him, they would be in greater knowledge for him. For example, it's called deification in the Bible. It's the idea that we become God, in a sense we become closer to God. So it would have been a process of unification.
Would it have been different from today?
Of course it would.
So for example, such as what would be different?
Well, I believe there would be nations, there would be cultures, but instead we wouldn't be separated. We would be one. We would be unity under God. There wouldn't be a separation of religions or ideologies, for example. There wouldn't be atheists, Muslims, agnostic. You know what I'm saying? There would just be one order, and that would be unto God.
And that is the reason that God himself has to take manhood and to give his own life.
Well, the reason why God had to do it is because if you read the Old Testament, right, it says in Genesis 8, and I'll go from Genesis all the way up to Revelation, right? So in Genesis 8, it literally says that God says, if any man kills a man, then his life shall be taken. For the life of man is in the blood of man. Now it says in Leviticus, right, that without the shedding of blood, there can be no forgiveness of sins. Remember, I've just told you that the life of a man is in the blood of a man. That's clear. It says in Deuteronomy, right, if you read it, it says that any man that sins, any man, could meal you, right, are worthy of death. But God is just. He has to kill us if we sin. All men have sinned everywhere.
So your understanding...
Can I just finish?
Go ahead.
Can I just finish? Right? So basically, right, as I've told you, right, all men everywhere have sinned. We all need to be wiped out. How can this be atoned for? The only way can, as Hebrews 9 says, if the testator, the one who gives this commandment, dies himself. You understand what I'm saying? So if that testator dies, then this commandment is fulfilled. And because Jesus is eternal, Jesus is forever, when he dies, the covenant is forever. It's changed. It's no longer the case that if you sin today, you die, but instead Jesus has paid that sacrifice. But in order to get in heaven now, you need to conform to his image. You need to believe in him, that he's the way, the truth, and life, that he's God. Because if you don't, then you'll be led to eternal damnation. You'll still be alive, but led to eternal damnation. The gift was free life, but where you go after life is up to you.
So in summary, you're saying that because of what Adam and Eve did, we are in this position at the moment. As
I explained to you before, it's not because of what Adam and Eve did. Why? The reason why we sin is because of what Adam and Eve did. So the reason why the inclination for you...
What was the reason Adam and Eve sinned?
Right. What was the reason they did? So if you read Genesis 3...
Eventually they did, right?
Yeah. If you read Genesis 3, the reason why they sinned is because Eve was the God.
That because of what Adam and Eve did, we are here today, born in sin, like that.
No, I'm saying the first transgression, so the very first transgression...
In a nutshell, I'm talking in a nutshell.
Yeah, but...
And let's say if they didn't do that, we would be in a different position. But then you also add on to this that because of that, what happened at that time, the God has to come down as well, clear the sin of mankind, and wipe away the sins, right? Is that what the whole concept is?
Right, so I think you're misunderstanding what I've said. Right, first of all,
actually, I'll tell you what is happening, because I had a long conversation with that lady,
right,
and she's passed on to yourself. So I am just giving you the whole matter, and this is what I've understood.
Well, but you're still misunderstanding what I've said, because like I just did, and it's on camera, I just went from Genesis all the way to Revelation to show you that the atonement it's a factual thing. It had to happen in order to fulfill the Old Testament. Bearing in mind, I've said to you before, Adam and Eve's sin wasn't the reason why we are in sin. No, Adam and Eve are our forefathers, therefore they brought within their very nature, the inclination to sin. So even if you chose today not to sin, you still have the inclination.
So we are built like that. Is that what it is?
We're not. I'm not saying we're built like that. You're using that language. I'm not using that language, bro.
I am using simpler language.
But I'm not using that language.
You are being very articulate, which is very good. That's fine.
But when you say built, that means that God caused it to happen, and I don't believe in that. So when you say built, you have to be very specific. We don't believe it is built that way. No, God built all things good. That's what the Bible says. But what happened is, Adam and Eve transgression caused anybody they give birth to inherit this transgressional nature. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay. So
is there any way I can explain it better?
No. So that's fine. I've taken it from Adam and Eve. What the day that we are born into, you said we have inherited that, right?
We've inherited it because they did it first. You know what I'm saying?
They did it first.
Yeah.
And did they have the tendency to do that or not?
They had. So when you mean tendency, you mean inclination.
Tendency.
Yeah. But I'm just replacing it with a word that sounds more. Yeah. So they did have the capacity, but they didn't have it in their nature. So if I don't, let's say I don't become a basketball player, but I say I can play basketball. but I've never played basketball in my life. Would it be the case that I'm a basketball player?
I'm really, really sorry. We have to leave. But
Oh, fine.
hopefully in future, if we may, we can speak. Thank you so much.
That's fine.
Thank you so much. Thank
Come
you.
to Lord
Thank you.
Jesus,
Thank
man.
you.
See you later, man. What do you want me to do, Fred? Oh, I don't know what to say. Oh no, I just basically had a conversation with that guy. I mean, Muslims get the atonement wrong. We don't believe that it's basically Adam and Eve, by sinning, has basically damned us towards hell. No, we believe that by sinning, they've inherited a nature, and a nature continues in all human bodies. So everybody born of Adam and Eve has to feel that nature. That's why it says in John 3, and that's why Jesus says, every man must be born again, because you cannot be born of the old nature. Jesus Christ died to give you a new nature, a new Christ nature, so you will feel so you won't feel the lust of the eyes and lust of the flesh anymore, but you will live for Christ. But anyway, I'll leave it. I'm not gonna